There are rules. A Changeling the Lost story. Night had come to the hedge the way it always did, creeping in like a bottle of spilled ink until darkness dripped from every thorn and flower. Things moved in the undergrowth, stalking and slithering as the shadows themselves sought blood and tears from those unlucky enough to be left without shelter in the world between. Jacoby sat in his old chair in front of his fireplace. He listened to the night winds blow and the unspeakable things howl in the darkness outside. His hollow was set at the end of a mostly hidden path, with watch willows and gossip petals planted all around. Nastier things lined the path as well, ensuring that those without serious business never came to his door. The ogre was taking his first sip of tea, now that it had stopped screaming, when the clock on his mantel chimed. The clock had no hands, and it didn't tick or talk, but it wasn't there to tell time. It was an alarm clock, and it warned him when somebody was coming. It chimed a second time. Jacoby waited, but a third chime didn't come. He let out a breath he hadn't been aware he was holding, took another drink of his tea, then got up. Mug in hand, he opened his front door. A creature stood on Jacoby's front porch. Tall and regal, with a thick mane of swept-back silver hair, he had the tight mouth of a miser and the cold, empty eyes of a shark. The silk suit the creature wore was bespoke, cut from night mist, and sewn with a skill only a hobgoblin could manage. Moon tears glinted at his wrists, and from the understated tie pin he wore. The air around the visitors seemed crisp and dry, the shadows deeper than they should be. As Jacoby watched, a flurry of phantasmal leaves skittered over the creature's leather shoes, making a sound like panicking spiders before vanishing once more. "Lucius," Jacoby said, his tone thoroughly nonplussed. "Jacoby," Lucius said, deliberately mispronouncing the ogre's name. "I'd say it was nice to see you, but that would be a lie." "Let's skip the pleasantries then," Jacoby said. "What do you want?" Lucius gave Jacoby a smile that was even colder than his eyes. "Aren't you going to invite me in? Seems rude to keep a guest out here in the dark." "It's my house, and I'll be rude if I want. It keeps away unwanted pests." Jacoby took another sip of his tea. "Say what you've got to say before I tell you to leave." The smile, if possible, grew wider before Lucius put it away, in acknowledgement that Jacoby had touched a sensitive spot. "I know you're the one who helped Wolf get out of the city." "Bold claim," Jacoby said. "You also put your hands on my retainers," Lucius hissed, "one of whom sustained rather severe injuries." "Hopefully you learn from the experience," Jacoby said. "I'm not much for teaching, but I do my best." For just a moment, Jacoby felt Lucius reaching for his glamour. All around them the hedge grew still. Flowers opened and trees seemed to shift, each of them listening for a challenge to be issued, as if the greenery itself was more than ready to form a ring while the wind through the willows whispered, "Fight, fight, fight." Then he eyed Jacoby and the protection surrounding his hollow. Self-preservation won out, and the autumn courtier's lips twitched as if he'd eaten a lemon with extra salt. "I am going to say this once, and only once," Lucius said, holding Jacoby's gaze with his own. "And I want no misunderstanding. Stay out of my business, or there will be consequences. Do you understand?" Jacoby took another sip of his tea, refusing to look away from the Ferris's hard gaze. Then once the air started growing thick again, he spoke. "I'm half blind, not half deaf," Jacoby said. He stepped out the front door of his hollow, squaring his shoulders. Lucius took a step back, his head tilting back as Jacoby stood to his full height.
But in the interest of clarity, I'll be straightforward. You come for me, or anyone in my court, and I will bury you beneath my juniper tree. You understand me?
Jacoby watched Lucius's face. He watched as Autumn's power broker replayed the words Jacoby had just spoken, looking for some advantage to be found in them. For a moment it seemed like Lucius was going to expend the magic to turn Jacoby's threat into a pledge, but he didn't. Maybe he thought that would be a shove hard enough to get the Summer King involved, or maybe Lucius remembered what Jacoby had done to his underling who'd mildly inconvenienced him in the park a few nights ago. The Fairest folded his empty hands and nodded.
I ask if you understood me, Lucius,
Jacoby said.
Yes, Jacoby, I understand you,
The Autumn Courtier replied.
Good,
The Ogre said, tossing off the rest of his tea in a single, scalding gulp. Steam rose from his mouth and into the chill night air.
Now get off my porch.
Lucius turned, his back straight as a fireplace poker, walking down the short, stone path to the Briar gate. He opened it gingerly and stepped back into the hedge proper. Standing there in the dark, he favored Jacoby with another smile. This one stretched his face far further than it should have, and his sharp, white teeth seemed to glow in the shadows.
This isn't over, Jacoby,
he said. Jacoby sniffed and rubbed at his nose.
That's your decision. But don't sow the wind if you aren't ready to reap the harvest, Scarecrow.
Lucius's smile vanished, along with the rest of him. Jacoby could still feel the Autumn Courtier's eyes off in the hedge, staring at him. He listened, but he didn't hear his alarm clock chime. The ogre took a deep breath of his garden's green perfume and stepped inside. He shot the deadbolt and threw the security bar. Then he decided to make himself another mug of wire root tea. Lucius probably wouldn't do anything about this insult tonight, but Jacoby was going to stay up for a few more hours, just to be sure.